The following is a presentation of Project Independence and WCWP. Project Independence is the Aging in Place initiative of the town of North Hempstead.
Welcome to Project Independence and You.
Good morning and welcome to Community Talk Radio. This is Project Independence and You on LIU Public Radio. I'm your host and producer, Kristina Liu, along with my co-host, Otto Los. Otto is a volunteer, friend, all around A+.
Good
PI
morning.
member, yes. And today's a special show, Otto. Today is our last one of 2024, and we are going to be talking about a very important topic with Manda Kristal, who is the Financial Exploitation and Abuse Program Coordinator at Family and Children's Association and a Senior Financial Counselor. We're talking about the latest tips on frauds and scams prevention, which Otto and I somehow bring up a scam every show, I think, because it's something that is prevalent, and I love having Manda on. Manda, you are our guru, and we're glad to have you on. So welcome, Manda. Thank you for coming back.
Thank you for having me.
So let's dive in. Unfortunately, the negative part about the holiday season is that it seems that it gives people a free rein to scam you even more than normal. So what are there, let's dive into what are like the top scams that are going on right now. Give us a little rundown.
Okay, so the biggest scam is gift card scams. So what we have to be careful about, gift cards are great. And if you want to give somebody a gift card, that's wonderful. If you're buying them in stores, make sure that when you are in the store, you look at the packaging. Make sure it wasn't tampered with. Make sure that the stickers are there. See if it's a card that can be registered with the retailer, so that once you buy it, you register the card with the retailer, and never send personal information to anybody to get free gift cards. So that's my initial tip with using gift cards. Also, with scams, whether they are scams for paying utilities, or anytime anybody asks you to read numbers off of the back of a gift card, it's 100% a scam. No matter how legitimate a company sounds, we've seen people call that they were told that their electric bill wasn't received and that they got a call from their electric company, and that if they didn't pay right away, their electricity would be turned off. And all they had to do was go buy $500 worth of gift cards, read the back of the numbers off of it, and they'll be okay. Never read the back of the gift card numbers to anybody. Anybody who's asking you for that, even if it's to pay for services, it's a scam.
So physically, they do not have to have the card. They just need to have the number.
That's correct. They can
And
drain the
that's how they
card.
handle, like somebody says, give me $500 in gift cards. They really don't need to have all the cards. They just read off all the numbers, spend the money, I guess.
Yep.
Do they get cash, or do the crooks get cash, or do they have to maybe buy a little and then have a balance on the card?
Nope, they just drain the card of the amount that's on it because they have that number. And so they will go, let's say, on to Amazon or something, and it says, put in your gift card number.
Yes, so
and
they're
you put
buying
in,
product,
Right, so they're
yeah.
buying, and they use that money.
And there is absolutely no way that can be tracked.
Correct.
So they have no idea who
Correct.
used the gift card.
Correct. So that's why we see in any scams that are being done, whether they've been done in the past, now, or in the future, what we see scammers asking, they tell you exactly how they want to get paid. And it's usually with gift cards or a prepaid debit card, a wire transfer, and now we're actually seeing cryptocurrency.
Oh,
Bitcoin.
I didn't even think about
Right.
all that. Yeah.
And all those methods of payment can't be traced back. So they get the money immediately, and you're really out of luck.
Now, those green dot cards, those are like a prepaid card. I always hear like people saying that. I was curious.
Which card?
They're called like green dot like gift cards. I don't know if that's just like a prepaid money card. I've
I
seen
don't know
that.
that one either.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
I've
know
seen
that
it
one.
randomly. Yeah, so I was was curious to know.
I mean,
about that.
even I've seen and heard where people say, okay, bring $2,000 cash to such and such. Whenever anybody's doing that who you don't know, like maybe you're dealing with a local contractor who the family knows, that could happen, all right? But it should not happen with somebody you don't know, and you're all of a sudden they tell you bring $5,000 to wherever.
Well, the scammers have gotten very, very brazen. And like you said, it used to be pay us this way, through cards. But now they're saying, pay us in cash, we'll send somebody to pick it up, or we'll meet you somewhere and pick it up. And unfortunately, people are doing it. And why? Because scammers work in two ways. When they get you on the phone, they either make you really scared that if you don't do something that they're asking you to do right then and there, something bad is going to happen to you or a family member, or they get you really excited. You want a cruise, you want a car, or you won the lottery. And, if you don't, pay right now for, the taxes on this prize, we're going to go to the next person. So they get you into a heightened, sense of excitement or fear, and they want you to react with your heart and not your head. And that's why people do things. And, as I say, you don't have to be a fool to be fooled. It doesn't matter who you are. Anybody can be a victim of a scam.
Well, you used some golden nugget
Yeah, I
words
know.
there.
It's
Acting with your heart.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the number one problem. You get your emotion involved with it as opposed to your head really thinking something through, which in most cases, people need a little time to think
right.
things
Well, that's right, because
through.
it's that urgency that you were
Exactly.
pointing
The
at.
scammers create a sense of urgency. And if you can just take a deep breath,
and process,
count to
right.
3, pause, call a trusted family member, a friend. You can call me at my office. We're glad to speak to anybody to, see whether there's really something going on, or if it is a scam, or if it's real. But distance yourself from the call. If you, feel that spidey sense that somebody is creating urgency and making you scared to do something right away, it's really good to speak to somebody, a trusted friend or family member, and take time before you act.
Amanda, what's your phone number? I'd like to just at this point give that out.
Sure, it's 516-485-3425, extension 2333. And again, anybody can call if they have anything that they get in the mail, a text on their phone, an email. We'd be happy to speak with them to make sure that they are legitimate and not being scammed.
Well, like we're talking mainly phone scams right now. It sounds like, a lot of it. And I know landlines are sort of like, most people don't use them, but occasionally answer them. But I also noticed that cell phones are starting to get more garbage calls, if you will. And I'm not too sure, like landline was easier. You just don't answer the phone. Cell phones now, I think, is a newer target, if you will. Not new, but
Popular mode of
more and more difficult to cut off. Because you do get phone calls on your cell phone,
Sure.
which you want to answer.
Sure. Well, I tell people my number one tip prevention for scammers is 3 words: don't pick up.
Yeah.
Don't pick up the phone. It's the easiest thing that you can do, and it's the best way to keep yourself protected. So you said, like landlines, if you're home and you have an answering machine, anybody who really is needing to get to you, right? We all say we don't know everybody's phone number, but anybody who really needs to get to you is going to leave you a message. So if you're at home and you have an answering machine, then you let it go to your answering machine and you screen it. And if you hear it's a legitimate call, you pick it up. If it's on your cell phone, let them leave a message. And then you see right away that they left a message and you call them back immediately. So again, the number one way to prevent yourself from falling for a scam. And also then you don't have to say to yourself, is this real? Is this not real? It sounded so legitimate. And these scammers do sound very legitimate, and they've become much more sophisticated in what they do. And now we have the problem with artificial intelligence, so that you can be listening to the sound of a voice of a friend or a relative that really sounds like they're in trouble. So, we really have to know what we're doing. We can't, unfortunately, trust anything that we see or we hear. So the other tip that I always tell people is always verify information. Before you give any personal information out, before you write out a check to somebody, before you send money to them, make sure, or even before you speak to them, make sure you know who you're speaking to. Make sure you know who you're sending this money to. Verify using your own information, not a number that they leave on your answering machine, not a number that they're leaving on an email. You need to go to your own statements and get the correct number and call them and make sure that there really is a problem or that, they're looking to get information from you.
Yeah, I mean, I've had that recently. We talked offline about credit cards 3 times now in the last year and a half being frauded. And you end up, the bank will call you and tell you you got to blah, blah. And I'm at the point where I'm reluctant to even talk to them. Yeah. And so I really go through this whole hoop-de-doo, and I ended up in one case hanging up and calling, like you just described, call the number that is the fraud department. Eventually you will get to the fraud department. You may not start there, but you may have to listen to some music and some things along the way, but you will eventually get to the bank's fraud department. It's work.
It is a lot of work, and unfortunately, I just was informed about a new scam that is, yesterday, which is very, very unsettling, and it is a call or a text or an email that is coming straight from, supposedly, the fraud department of your bank or of your brokerage firm. They may even have some of your personal information, including your account number, and they ask you to verify. And it's totally a fraud. So if you get a call from a fraud department, even if it is from your bank or your brokerage firm, hang up and get the number that you know to be correct and call them back and ask, is there really a problem, before you give any information, even if it's confirming information that they're telling you. And unfortunately, I mean, it's just, really sad
I
that we
think
live
what
in
that
this.
tells me is that the bank, the financial company, the retailer, the whoever, that's where it starts, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Somebody's able to hack into the records of those places to get your information.
Or sometimes they just make things up. So they can send out an email saying that they're from Chase Bank or
Right.
from Macy's department store that looks
Yeah, they
very,
look so. We talk about it all the time. Like, you'll see the correct logo. I mean, if you're looking at it just quickly, you're like, oh yes, of course, this is Amazon.
Exactly.
And then when you really start, but you have to be an investigator. It takes work, as you to
One
really
of the things that
decipher.
I check all the time is
the
the
email,
address that
yeah.
it actually came from.
right, you hover over
yeah.
that.
There, it usually, that doesn't mean that they can't fraud the email address either. Maybe they have a way of
Yeah,
putting
right.
a legitimate email address physically, and yet they're using some other address to make it work. I don't know. I'm not but I have to
it's just,
visualize that.
But that's always that's kind of my rule of thumb too. I'm like, all right, because you really need to be like, and as you said, you need to take that moment, and I think that that's such an important message for everyone listening, is that, they want you to act impulsive, so you have to do everything in your power to be like, all right, let me just process this. I mean, we've all been there. You better, when you're in a state of stressed out, you're not thinking clearly, and you're just like, I just need to get this done, So I definitely think that you need to take a minute and just kind of work your way, because I get so many emails. That's like the way that I get it, especially this holiday season. I'm getting packages from, these texts saying this is UPS, your package is being held. There was an issue at the warehouse. If you confirm this, it's this whole story. And I'm like, it's very plausible. I have 10,000 packages I'm waiting for, So I actually needed to be like, okay, hold on. And I looked and I was like, this is not UPS, obviously. So it's just, but it took time.
Right,
to
so
figure it out.
that we're seeing a lot of that
Yeah.
with Federal
Yeah,
Express,
right.
with UPS, with the United States Postal
Yeah.
Service. You get a text on your cell phone saying that there's a package that
Yeah,
can't be
right.
delivered,
Yep.
and to click on this this link. Please don't click on
At
the
least
link.
like 3 to 4 times a week I get that text.
Yeah.
So it's very frequent.
I mean, you get email from, I use the name Geek Squad because if somebody does get one from them, it could be a problem. It's not them. It's somebody telling you, here for your $485, we're going to charge your card for this program that you run with Geek Squad. And the facts of life are Geek Squad knows nothing about this. So you call them and then they say, oh, well, you better give me back your credit card number. Does it end in these 4 digits? Yeah. So now they have your card number and they can play games with that. You know, I think to me, the bottom line is it's only going to get worse. I don't think you're ever going to eliminate scammers. And I think you really have to figure out how to stop being scammed, cut your loss, or minimize your chances of getting hit. I think you could be as smart as you are about it and still get hit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have to be on our toes all the time. And look, nobody, we're only human.
Yeah, of
We're not
course,
on
absolutely,
100% of the time. A lot of times the scammers will call either early in the morning before you've really had your cup of coffee and your brain's in gear.
I know, I might sign my life away early in the morning.
Or they'll call late in the evening.
Yeah.
Waking you up from sleep or with a phone call from a relative that's in trouble. I mean, they know how to get us. They know how to get us. And,
Well,
and it is up to us to stop them. So that's why these radio shows and, it's so important to inform people about what is out there and how they can protect themselves.
Yeah, I mean, one that I saw is on Facebook, all right? Men's shirts, Under Armour logo, this kind of logo, every kind of logo, 10 shirts for $40 or whatever. And I've never clicked on them because I don't believe it.
But he's itching to because he's brought this
I
up
am
a couple of
itching to.
times on the show.
They show the shirts really, really nice.
I know. My poor friend. I know. That's how they get you.
Even there, if you're going to buy those shirts, go to the website.
Absolutely. Well, after the break, we will continue talking with Manda Kristal, who is the Financial Exploitation and Abuse Program Coordinator and Senior Financial Counselor at Family and Children's Association, all about the latest tips on frauds and scam prevention. You're listening to Project Independence and You on LIU Public Radio.
So I get this call from my grandma, and she's like,
"What's a podcast and how much does it cost?"
So I tell her, podcasts are like radio shows, but you can download them on any device and listen to them anywhere at any time, and they're free. And then she says,
"I see, but where can you find good ones?"
And I'm like, go to wcwp.org/podcast and check out the lineup of original shows, or download any podcast app on your phone or tablet and search for LIU Studios. And she's all like,
"Oh, that sounds easy."
And then she asked me what an app is.
LIU Studios podcasts, available on any podcast app. You know, those little button things on your phone screen. Just ask your grandkids.
Welcome back to Project Independence and You on LIU Public Radio. I'm your host, Kristina Liu, along with my co-host, Otto Los. We're going to jump right back in with Manda Kristal, who's the Financial Exploitation and Abuse Program Coordinator and Senior Financial Counselor at Family and Children's Association, all about how to protect yourself from scams and frauds and what's going on. So, Manda, let's get back into it, because clearly we could talk about this all day long. It's a very passionate topic for Otto and I, and I'm so glad that you mentioned, unfortunately, we can't stop all scams, but what we can do is educate people. And what you're doing, Manda, is just such a service for people, because I think the more that you let people know what to look out for, certainly is helpful. So thank you for everything that for you're doing. So, Otto, I know you had some questions.
I have a question that just hit my brain here. When you get a phone call at home, caller ID is no longer valid as far as I'm concerned, because they can fake the caller ID. Mm-hmm. But if you have a cell phone, usually it will look in your contacts to see if this is a number that is in your contacts and will display the name of the person making the call. So talking out loud, basically, does that mean then that if you have like a bank fraud department or whatever, if you put those phone numbers in your contacts, will that then show up as a legitimate call?
So it's
Or is there a workaround?
It's an interesting question. I think if you put a legitimate number in your phone as a contact, it should.
Is there a workaround for the bad people?
There might be.
Yeah.
There might be, and I'll tell you why. Because I know that I've seen my cell phone ring, and it shows my cell phone number on it.
Yeah, because it could ring.
So they have a way of putting numbers into your, as I said, your caller ID box or on your cell phone that they're not even calling from. When your cell phone is calling your own number or your house number, and your phone is in your hand, so they got your number somehow and are able to do it. So again, unfortunately, you can't trust what you see, and the best way to know whether something is real or not is to verify it with your own information and not to believe. I mean, one of the big things that we see is Social Security Administration pops up on your phone, and it's a call that says that they're going to suspend your Social Security because of fraudulent activity or suspicious activity on your account. Now, when you're a senior and you count on that money and you're going through your head, oh my God, how am I going to pay my rent? How am I going to get my food? And then they say, call this number to, for help. All you want to do is call that number because you want to take care of it immediately so that you don't lose your benefits. Again, don't call the number that they're giving you. Make sure that you go and find out from your own documents what the number for Social Security Administration is, and then call. And again, I'm sorry to have to say this, but even Googling, you have to be really
so
careful.
true. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Because now the fraudsters are using search optimization, and they are creating fake websites. So they know that they're giving you an Amazon scam. They're going to buy and create a fake website for Amazon so that when you look up Amazon, they're hoping that you're going to use their website as opposed to the real website.
No, that's such a good point, because I actually have seen recently, and they might not be scam things, but when you're Googling something and there'll be, the top things at the top. And a lot of times that's not actually what you're even looking for. I might type in, Amazon or something, and they'll bring up something, and you're instinct, I'm going to click on the first one, and it's not actually Amazon.com or whatever it is, and I've been seeing that, especially with more like obscure kind of websites and stuff. It's very interesting. So you really need to check.
Like Google optimization has always been a mystery to me. I got involved with it because of work a number of years ago. And it seems to be a combination of a lot of things, one of which I think you have to pay to get jacked up further. So does that mean that the bad guys, if you will, actually pay to get their fake, and
it sure seems that way.
And therefore Google is part of the problem?
I don't know if they're part of it. I think
it's
it's just, money. I think it's just like, there's different ways to pay to get, higher up on the chain of things. I just don't think there's, an adequate vetting that's going on really.
But so if they show up in the top page, which most of the time you don't go past the first page. Right. You're going to go to them because you figure it's legit.
Of course.
And that's why we have to keep in our heads that word verify. I can't say it enough. Verify, verify, verify. All the information that you are going to be then giving to somebody else, make sure you know and vet who you are giving this information to.
Yeah, I mean, like you go to Google and you put in, I'll use Citibank, all right? You put in Citibank because you don't have the link. In your bookmark. So you want to go to Citibank, and you go to Citibank, and then there's a few things that show up. What we're saying is they may not all be legitimate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need to literally, go to the website that I mean, you have to be kind of like a detective, with all of this is really what you need to do.
That's an interesting way of putting it.
Yeah, like you have to.
Unfortunately.
And like, listen, I think it is a fine line where we say you don't want people to every day live their life in complete and utter terror and fear, right? But I think you need to kind of just have these skills and to be part of you, so it just becomes like, okay, I'm just being proactive, and a legitimate company isn't going to get mad if you're going to say, I'm going to call you back.
Exactly. I always tell people, what's the worst thing that can happen? Right? If you question something and it's legitimate, what's the worst thing
Yeah.
that'll happen is they'll say, no, this is
I'm
legitimate.
legitimate, right.
And you're like, oh, great,
Yeah.
thank God.
Yeah.
You know, that's the worst scenario.
Right.
But so many good things can happen when you question and find out that it's not the right thing in the way that you are protecting yourself. So I always tell people, and going back to Otto, what you had said before about your shirts and the desire to buy those shirts, you know, we grew up in an age where there was an adage that said, if it sounds too good to be true, it is too good to be true. And if people will think about that, right?
Yeah, it's a good rule of thumb, right.
Nobody's giving you these, you know, these breaks. Nobody's sending you free money. Nobody's out there, you know, doing things, you know.
And if somebody
unfortunately.
legitimately is, please, you know, call us
please
up.
Right. So if you keep in the back of your head, you know, like that, if it sounds
Yeah.
too good to be true, it is too good to be true. That'll also kind of help keep
Yeah.
you protected. We talked again offline a little bit about a lottery scam.
Yes, that's what I wanted to bring up,
Where people
right.
are getting letters from what it looks like Publishers Clearinghouse saying that they've won the lottery, but in that letter, they're sending a check made out to the person for the amounts of like $10,000 or $15,000, and they say you've won $500,000, deposit this check, send us $5,000, and we'll send you the remainder of the money. So people are saying to themselves, you know, even if I don't get the remainder of the money, I have in my hand a check for $10,000. I'm depositing it. I'm giving them the $5,000. I'm still up $5,000. And they're doing this right and left. And what happens? Within 24 or 48 hours, they get a call from the bank
Check
that
is
that check bounced. And
Then you get
now-
hit with a fee on top of the check bouncing, right? It's
Right,
like,
and
yeah.
now you
Yeah. Are out that.
you're out the $5,000 that you sent them, and there's no way to trace it. There's no way to get it back.
That's
so,
the thing that always baffles me is like you said something here, how do scammers operate? That is really a skill and a science. These people are sharp
Yeah, well,
crooks.
that's how they spend their, you know, they make their living. So
And
they've
they
kind
could
of
be
honed
in,
in
they
these
could
skills.
be anywhere. They could
Yeah.
be in New Delhi. They could be in
Yeah.
Birmingham, Alabama.
100%.
You know,
100%.
and the chances of catching them is very slim, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Hopefully, the detection methods get better as years go by.
And they have been. I mean, I've been doing this now over 7 years, and like you said, now you can look on your cell phone, and sometimes it'll say
Scam,
scam
like,
risk,
and it won't even ring, which
Right.
my phone will do. Like,
Right.
and also I look at my phone, I'm like, what's going on? You know, and you see this, but it says, you know, possible scam or scam like, or whatever
which
it
is
might fit.
which
yeah.
is new. That
Right,
wasn't
yeah.
happening when I first started doing this.
Yeah.
So you know, it's slow strides, it's baby steps, but we are.
Well, yeah, anything, right? I think it's, and I'm glad that you mentioned that because, you know, hopefully, unfortunately, it's like, you know, we're trying to like keep up because things are always evolving. But I think these little things, you know, do certainly have to cut some stuff out, you know? So, I mean, I think it's one of the situations anything helps.
Well, one of the golden nuggets I remember from when you were here, we talked about, you know, your grandson calls now with artificial intelligence. That's even worse because it could sound like your grandson.
Correct.
And you talked about using a family password, which I since then did implement, which I'm not going to tell you what it is.
Yes, don't share that on the air. We don't want to know the Los
But
password.
within your own family, to make sure that in a call from your family member, which could be now because of artificial intelligence, sound very legitimate, you really have to say, okay, Charlie, you know, what is the family password? And if they don't know the family password, you hang up.
Right. So a couple of things with that. So now I also tell people that is absolutely number one, very good to do, a way to keep yourself protected from those scams. But even if you don't have a family password, pretend like you have a family password.
That's great. That's a great point,
Honestly,
right?
You just
Yeah.
ask that person
Right,
on the
what's the
other side,
password,
what
right.
is our password? And the probability is they're going to hang up. Because how do the scammers work, right? They have lists of names and phone numbers. When you pick up the phone, there's a check mark that goes next to your name that you picked up the phone. When you listen to the whole message and then you press 2 when you says you want it to be removed from the list and you press 2, another check mark goes next to your name. So now, without you ever saying even hello, you've
You've
given
already
them
been on.
really good information that you pick up phone calls for numbers that you don't know and you listen to the whole message.
Wow.
And what do they do with that list? They sell it to other scammers. So
web.
you might not fall for the scam that they're
Right.
doing now
Right,
because
but
you're
now you're
listening to this
on,
program and you're going to hear, what the scams are, but they're going to keep that list.
Yeah.
And 5 months from now, they're going to call you again. And they're selling that list and you're going to get more calls from other scammers because you're a prime target.
Mm-hmm.
You pick up the phone and you listen to the whole message.
Wow.
So
Yeah, that's
that's
great
another
rule of
reason
thumb,
why
yeah.
I say my number one
Yeah,
tip
is don't
prevention
answer.
is don't pick up the phone, and my number two one is of always verify.
Yeah.
And if you can keep those things in mind, you really can protect yourself from most of the scams that are occurring.
A couple, you said about going to the real website, if it's computer related, it could be on the phone, it could be on the computer, it could be knocking on the door. You have to be alert to scam possibilities through any one of those routes.
Absolutely. And one of the computer scams that I want to talk about, just because, with our senior population, we're not as tech savvy as the 20 and 30-year-olds. And, we deal with our computers, but we're a little intimidated by them as well. And one of the scams that we see people falling for is you're on your computer and all of a sudden a flashing box shows up on the right side of your computer saying virus alert, virus alert, do not close this computer, call this number immediately. So what do I want you to do? Close your computer. All you have to do is shut the computer, open it up, you'll be fine. Unfortunately, I had a client, she called the number, they said, for $500, we can go and put anti-malware onto your computer so that you'll be protected. She gave them the $500. She was very, very happy. They told her close the computer. She opened it up. Everything was fine. She went down and told her girlfriends at the card game that day that she did this and she was able to protect her computer. And one of the women at the card game said, oh, don't you realize that was the Microsoft scam? And they identified themselves as either Microsoft or Dell or Apple. And she felt terrible. 3 weeks later, she violated my rule number 1, which is do not pick up the phone for numbers you don't know. She picked up the phone, and the person at the other end of the phone identified themselves as an attorney, that they knew that she fell for the Microsoft computer scam and lost $500. She's not alone, and that he was representing many plaintiffs in a class action suit.
Oh my
And not
gosh.
only will she get back the $500, but they're going for punitive damages, and she'll get more than that. And all she had to do was write out a $2,500 check for a retainer for his legal services. And now the poor client was out $3,000.
Now,
Oh, my, like
check,
chills.
was this
That's
check
hard.
to somebody by name?
I believe it was.
Yeah.
I believe it was. And unfortunately, if you've been a victim of scam, the probability of them getting back to you is very, very high. Because if you fell for it once, you're more likely to fall for it again.
Wow, and that's like so. I mean, I understand, and that's what I want everyone to know. It's like, as you said, you are not a fool, because I get that, right? Because here's an attorney, and how we've all been there. Oh, it's a class action suit, and you're like, oh, great, and I just can't believe to get double scammed by the same person.
And because you've
is
already,
just,
your self-esteem is so
Of
low. Because
course.
you said after the first
Right.
time, oh my God, how could I have been so stupid? I should
Oh
have
my
known
gosh,
better.
wow.
So you want to do anything to
Yeah,
get yourself
right.
back up into a place where, if I can help and get back to where I was.
Oh my God, what a story! I can't even.
Yeah.
That's really just blew my mind.
It's work.
Yeah.
Yep, it's the 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
So
Oh my
be
gosh.
careful.
They almost really have to start, maybe they do, when kids are in school, they have to really start in teaching them how to avoid being scammed as part of a financial class. Practical finances of life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, now we're seeing on television, for the first time, a lot of public service
Yes.
announcements about scams. And one of the commercials that I keep seeing repeatedly is about the Social Security.
Yes, I see that one often, right.
Scam, which is great. And the more public service information we have, the more information that's out there, and the more we hear about it. There was a study that was done in New York York that showed that if people knew about scams, they were 80% less likely to engage in them. And if they did engage with them, it was 40% less likely that they would lose money. So, education is
It's so
really our
huge,
best
absolutely.
defense.
Really, just so incredibly important. Just
And it's ongoing.
Absolutely, because the scams that we're talking about today are not going to be the
Right,
scams that we are going to talk about
exactly,
6
yeah.
months
I
from
mean,
now.
if we're here, we are. This is the scam department of our big company that we started, and we're thinking about how can we scam people. That's what they do.
Yeah,
That's what they do for a living.
Right.
And they
There's
know.
call centers all over the world with really hundreds of people just sitting and making these scam calls. Like
Now-
it's not the mom and pop one-off.
Yeah.
See, that bothers me.
It's a
You
big
just said
business.
call centers all over the world. How many times have you or I or any of us been on the phone buying something and they say, yeah, give me your credit card number and your secret code.
Yeah, this
the
TCV code,
three-digit
yeah.
secret code. And you're giving it to somebody on the
I
phone.
know, I
You
know.
have no idea where they are or who they are. And sometimes it's legitimate. How do you avoid that?
Well, after the break, we're going to get all this information from Manda Kristal, who's the Financial Exploitation and Abuse Program Coordinator and Senior Financial Counselor at Family and Children's Association, all about frauds and scams and how to prevent it, more importantly. You're listening to Project Independence and You on LIU Public Radio.
Take WCWP with you wherever you go with the WCWP app. Listen live 24/7 to all of our streams, all from one app. Plus, call the studios directly from the app and visit our social media. Download the app through the iOS App Store on Apple devices or the Google Play Store on Android by searching WCWP Radio, or visit WCWP.org for links. The WCWP app, available now on iOS and Android devices.
Welcome back to Project Independence and You on LIU Public Radio. I'm your host, Kristina Liu, along with my co-host, Otto Los. We're jumping back in with Manda Kristal from Family and Children's Association, all about the latest tips on frauds and scam prevention. Unfortunately, as we said, this is the season for, people are giving, so you're going to get a lot of charity calls. Is that something that you see too, or these fake charities that are making, calls to people?
Yes, so not only are they making calls, but there are also flyers going out. We have the war in the Middle East and the Ukraine. We have natural disasters. And these scammers prey on our willingness to be charitable. And they send out these flyers or they make these calls. And they ask you to donate to a charity that you may not have heard of. So there is a website called charitynavigator.org. And if you put the name of the charity into that website, it'll tell you whether it is a legitimate organization or not, which is very, very helpful. Also, what we've been seeing is sound-alike charities. So I had a client come in distraught. She'd been giving money to the American Red Cross for many, many years. She got a letter with the emblem, everything looked 100% real, and she was making out the check and she sent it, and then she realized she made the check out to the Red Cross of America, which was not a legitimate organization, and she had been scammed. So not only is
Yeah,
it
it's a
fake
great-
organizations,
yeah,
but
these
it's
sound-alike,
sound-alike organizations. So again, going back to that tip of verifying, make sure that you know who you are giving your money to, and never pay. And especially cash and checks as well, never give money to people that you don't know or never heard of. Or, if people have initiated contact with you and that you have not verified them, make sure to safeguard your personal information.
I would say half the mail we get is from some form of charity. And the other half comes from cruise ships or
Right, well, because once you give to one charity,
Yeah, right, you're
you
out.
start
Yeah.
getting mail from lots of charities.
I empathize with legitimate charities who are trying to get
Right.
money to run.
Right.
It's difficult. There's a lot of competition for people's money for nonprofits.
Right, and they send those pictures that are so heartbreaking.
course, right.
You
They
wanna
tug
give
on your
every penny
heartstrings,
to
right.
every
Absolutely.
child, every adult,
Yeah.
every victim.
Yes.
And the scammers know that. They
Yes.
know that we're good people, and that's why they come after us.
Yeah, and they tell a good story, which could be false.
Yeah.
Now, Amanda, when you hear about this term phishing scams, what actually does a phishing scam? Like, what does that entail?
So a phishing scam usually involves your computer and a phony email. And the organizations that are targeted, it can be an email that looks like it's coming from your bank or your brokerage firm or a store like Kohl's or Target or a credit card company like American Express or MasterCard. And again, it looks very real. And they tell you that there's suspicious activity on your account to click on this link and verify information. Or what I received recently was a phishing email from my bank, which I've been a customer of for many, many decades, and I know their phone number. So it said that there was suspicious activity on my account, to click on the link or call this number if you have any questions. And so I saw the number was a legitimate number. And so I called that number because I knew from my own records that this was the legitimate number. I asked if there was any problem with my account, and they said no. So as I said, these scammers are becoming much, much more sophisticated. And so you may get an email, which is a phishing email looking for information, and they're putting real information in it so that it'll make you more trusting that it's a legitimate email. So again, make sure that you know who you're dealing with before you take any kind of actions. And so that's what a phishing email is. And Google says that they block about 18 million phishing emails a day from getting into our emails.
I know my junk mailbox is jam-packed. I've looked at that before, and it's like, wow, there's a lot of all kinds of things in there. So
I had one that I wanted to point out. You said offline about the use of debit cards versus credit cards, which I thought was important. If you want to elaborate on that.
Sure. So the safest way to make a payment is by using a credit card. And also the safest way of using your credit card is by using the tap feature of your credit card rather than swiping, because with swiping there is something called skimmers, and sometimes scammers put skimmers on machines, and if you swipe your card they get the numbers off of the skimmer. If you tap your card, it is the safest way to use your credit card. And also the reason why you want to use a credit card versus a debit card takes the money immediately out of your bank account. A credit card is giving that money. It's not coming from your account. It is protected. There's federal protection under the law for you to get your money back. So when you use your credit card, there's limited liability versus when you use a debit card. When you use a debit card, that money is gone. When you use your credit card, there's a limited liability, and depending on whose credit card it is, it can range from, your $25 to $100, regardless of how much the charge was. Now, at this time, it's really important to also talk about credit card fraud, because what happens is if somebody gets your credit card number, they don't even have to have your physical credit card. What they might do is they might put a small charge on
we
your
talk about this all the time.
credit card for $1.99 or $2.50, and it might be, it's from a place that you don't recognize. But when you look at your statement, which is really crucial to look at your statement, and you see that credit card and charge, and you don't recognize it, it's really important. Just call the company, say, it might have been me. I might have bought a soda, or I just don't remember. I don't recognize it. They're going to say, don't worry about it. They're going to close the credit card. They're going to mail you a new one overnight, so you're not going to be without a credit card. If you don't do that, what's going to happen is next month, the people who have your credit card number, they're calling up the Apple store, they're making phone reservations with the airlines, and they're buying a new iPhone, a new computer, they're going to Hawaii on your credit card, because when they give that number, it's going to go through. So it's really important to check your statements. And if you don't recognize something, call your credit card company immediately and let them know that you don't recognize that.
Well, I've been a victim of that 3 times now in the last year and a half. What you said, $4 and whatever it was from something. And I really didn't, I do look, but I didn't really think about it. But then it showed up again, $4.80 or whatever it was. So now, okay. But what did I learn as a result of all of that is that you can have the bank advise you on your phone as soon as a charge is made to your card where the card wasn't present, which is very important in my judgment to set that up. So you look and you say, yeah, that was me. And it's fresh in your mind because it's coming in right then and there. So I think the message that I feel there is make sure you put every alert possible on your bank account so that you get notified for any time a credit card is used when it's not present, anytime a bank transaction takes place that's bigger on your checking account than $2 or whatever. My point being, there's a lot of things you can do.
Right. And another thing is very important is two-step authentication, which is also fantastic because what happens is if somebody does get your account number or information that's sensitive, if you have two-step authentication required before they do anything, you're going to get a notification on your cell phone that you have to respond to. So if it wasn't you and you're getting a two-step authentication message on your phone, you know that something is not right. So two-step authentication, anytime that it is offered to you, you should accept it because it is another layer of protection. And the more we can protect ourselves, the better off we are. Another thing that I wanted to bring out when talking about how important it is to review your credit card statements, it's really important to review your bank statements as well. Because another scam that we're seeing a lot of is this check washing scam. And what is a check washing scam? If a scammer gets a copy of one of your checks, they can dip it into a bleach solution, and anything that's not professionally printed wipes away clear, and then they write out the check to whoever they want for however much money they want. So if you're looking at your bank statement and you see a check that you didn't write it out, to that person for that amount, and you call the bank, you will be able to recover that money because it's forgery. It wasn't your signature. It wasn't done by you, but you have to do it in a timely manner. Usually with your banks, there is a specific amount of time in which you have to notify them if there was any kind of forgery. Another way to protect yourself from having your checks bleached or washed is by using a gel pen, not a ballpoint pen.
Interesting. That's a
but
great
gel pens, the viscosity of the ink is thick, and so they don't bleach the way a regular ballpoint.
Well, gel pens for everyone for
You
Christmas. There you
mentioned
go.
that once before when you were on, and we don't write too many checks anymore, but I do now have one of those pens.
Right.
Oh, see,
and you
you
can get
took
it
your
at
advice,
any,
man.
And they're not
you can use it at
expensive.
any, any
That's
of the
great,
local drugstores
Yeah.
or office supply stores.
That's
Sometimes
so
they actually
great.
say on it anti-fraud pens.
Yeah.
Otherwise, just a gel pen will do the trick.
Wow, that's great, yeah.
I did buy one.
See, Otto, he's a man of
And just
of
keep it
action.
in your checkbook, so that it's always there. When you pull out your checkbook, that pen is always there. And
I
you don't-
try to write as few checks
Me
as
too. Me
humanly
too.
possible.
Yeah.
Well, now with another possible fraud area, I'm sure, but PayPal, Zella, all of those.
Right. So with Zelle, Venmo, Zelle in particular, they've started asking, do you know who you're sending this money
Yes,
to?
I actually saw that the other day when I sent it, yeah.
And why are they doing
Yeah.
that? It's limiting their liability
Yeah.
because they don't want you to come back and say,
I didn't-
oh my God, I was scammed. I sent this money. They said that they were, so-and-so, and I believed them. Well, now Zelle is saying, well, you said you knew who you're sending it to, so it's not our problem. So again, if you are going to use something like Venmo or Zelle, make sure you know the number that you're sending the money to, and it is the person that you think it is before you hit that send money.
I mean, and that's a super convenient way
Of course, it's great now.
like
You don't have
I
to
run
wait for your friend to pay you
a
back, you know?
football pool.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's how, either you
Yeah,
can
either
do
you
that
pay
or you're not in the pool. No cash, no checks.
No, I know, it's tough, because a lot of these things are convenient, you know,
Yeah.
so it's tough.
Well, they
It's-
are. I mean, let's face
Yeah.
facts, it's very convenient.
So now another thing that we talked about offline were these romance scams. So what do those entail?
All right, so romance scams are really, really tough because they deal with your heartstrings. And the scammers have a lot of time, a lot of patience, and they work you over. They build confidence, they build trust, they take their time, they sweet talk you, they give you what you need, they hear what you're saying, and then, you know, they can be talking with you online or offline, and it could be weeks, it could be months that they're building up this rapport with you before they ask you for a penny. And all of a sudden, they start and they'll ask for a small amount and then another amount, and then they need, you know, then something terrible has happened and they need a loan, and you're already
And
believing.
now you're in love.
You're in love.
Love the
You're
person
in love, and or
Turkey
they
or wherever
need
they-
the money because they want to come and visit you.
Right, because that seems to, because that's a lot. And there's so many documentaries now in recent times that I've watched about these kind of like, you know, catfish kind of situations even that go on, and it's,
But do they go
crazy.
through a legitimate romance website?
So it can. What happens? It can start out on these apps, these dating
Yeah.
apps, and then what'll happen is they'll say, "Oh, let's
just-
move off the app and let's
Right, let's
start
talk on your
talking
phone,
off."
right.
Exactly, and that's when
So
the
then there's
trouble.
no record.
Exactly,
Mm-hmm.
that's where the trouble begins. Once you get off that app and start speaking with them on your own.
So the message is, if you're going to go into that stuff, go to one of the reputable romance apps and don't go off of it.
yeah, and I think, just beware of anyone asking you for money, you
Right,
know?
right.
It's like, it's really,
Especially if you've never met
yeah,
them.
right,
Yeah, right.
Especially if you've never met them. Usually if you are involved in a romance scam, if you want to FaceTime with these
Right.
people, they're not going to
Yeah,
FaceTime
it's
with
very
you.
true.
Or they're not going to give you any information that, could identify them. And that should be a sign. They won't meet with you personally anywhere.
There's so many
They won't
excuses all
FaceTime
the
with you.
time, it
There's
seems,
always
right.
an
Yeah.
excuse. And that should send up red flags. But even, with the people that I've dealt with, even with all those red flags, and you show them, you can actually show them the picture that they have of who they think that they're in love with is being used on the, on
right.
the website, on, you could Google the picture and you can see that it's a scam. They still don't believe that it's really
horrible.
happening.
Yeah.
It is very, very bad. It's very bad.
I'm assuming that people who do that are looking for companionship, if you will.
right, of
And-
course,
and,
yeah.
probably have a less rejection skills, if you will, because they don't want them. You really want it to work.
Well, this one is really targeted to seniors.
Yeah, right, 'cause you're
who are
alone,
isolated, who are homebound, who like that
Yeah.
companionship of being able to converse
Yeah,
online, who
absolutely.
don't necessarily need to meet. They don't want to be
Right.
seen.
Right, they just
right?
want this.
They just
co-
want this
right, this
intimacy,
personal, yeah.
right? And it's and there is an intimacy about it, and that's why a lot of these people won't stop giving money because they are getting something out of it, even if they
Yeah, I get it.
they don't want to believe they're being scammed, but they are getting something out of it because these guys are good. The scammers are, and it doesn't have to be, I say guys, but I use that term loosely. You don't know who's on the other end of that line when you're texting with them.
I mean,
or you're
anybody can make up
online
a
with them.
story. It's like writing a movie.
100%.
Well, Manda, so if someone has been scammed out there, give your number again that they can call you.
Sure, it is 516-485-3425, and it's extension 2333. Also, if you have been scammed, a couple of the steps that you should do is contact your bank immediately, let them know what is going on, contact your credit card company immediately, let them know what is going on. File a police report. Now, sometimes the police might say, there's no need to file a report. I always recommend people file a report because you don't know what's going to happen
next
down the
steps, right,
line.
right.
It might not be right now. As I said, these scammers have patience, and you don't know what they're going to use your information for in the future. So at least if you've reported it to the police, there is a paper trail that something has occurred.
I had to do that too, by the way. I went through this, there's a website that they send you to where you step by step.
Like what to do?
I forget whose website it is, but actually the bank told me to go to it. And it walks you through it. And one of the things they tell you to do is a police report.
Well,
Whoops.
such good information. I'd like to thank our guest today, Manda Kristal, who really you did such a good education for everyone listening. You're listening to Project Independence in You on LAU Public Radio. Thank you again.